Good evening, friends. We hope you're well. So we're just starting another What is Spiritism online study here at Light in the Shire Spiritist Group. My name is Fran Diogo, and I'm taking you through our last section of the third dialogue of the book between Allan Kardec and the priest. So we're just about to wrap that up today, going through pages 143 to 149. And we have started in the last section was we're discussing already the part 2 of the dialogue with the priest. So basically there was a lot of questions already discussed regarding the Catholic Church dogmas and some differences between what the Spiritism message was trying to convey. So Allan Kardec has answered a few questions from the priest already. So I'll just continue from where we stopped last time. So the last question was about some of the main Spiritist fundamentals, and Allan Kardec started on the previous question talking a little bit about that, some of the fundamentals of Spiritism that would basically explain a lot of cause and effects and have a lot of, information to answer a lot of the questions that we have as humans inherently, because of our nature. So he was talking about reincarnation. So I'm just going to wrap up that main idea about reincarnation. So Allan Kardec was completing an answer on page 143 saying that reincarnation was not a philosophy invented as needs of a cause, and it wasn't a personal opinion of his. He was trying to explain that reincarnation has demonstrated that some things are materially impossible without it. So it should be treated as part of the natural process of life. So we are born, we have an existence, we learn what we need to learn, and then once we're ready to finish this existence, of course, because of the plans that we had or whatever it is that gets us there, we will return to the spiritual realm. These temporary material bodies stay here because it's only matter, and our spirit continues to evolve. So basically, he was just saying it is part of nature. It cannot be annulled by an opposing opinion. It's just the way that the laws of the universe work, which does make sense for a lot of us, I guess. So we're just going to move on from that point. So we start from where we stopped. So the priest then has another question for Allan Kardec, being, according to the spirits, are those who do not believe in them or their manifestations less fortunate in the next life? So if you're not a spiritist, would you have trouble in your next reincarnation because of that? So to cut his answer short, he basically says, no, the spirits who teach us are more logical than that. They tell us that if God is supremely just and good and does not make people's futures destinies depend on conditions outside their will, they would not say that without Spiritism, there's no salvation, but like Christ, without charity, there's no salvation. So our success spiritually, in terms of how we see ourselves in the next life or in the spiritual realm when we come back from a reincarnation, is more to do with how charitable we were, how we learned the lessons that we needed to learn, and we developed our virtues, our morals towards what we were set out to do. Have we made the most of that opportunity that we had? So it's not so much as related to the belief that we have, but who we are, who we're being because of what we know. Is it changing how we live? So it's definitely not dependent on our faith or our beliefs, but how much love we have put into our lives, how much charity, which is, translated in what we understand in Spiritism as in how much love we have given, how much, pardon me, how much love we developed over our lives. Sorry. Something got in my throat then. Apologies. And then he continues, okay, so the priest continues to question this point. So he tells Kardec, then allow me to tell you that since the spirits teach only the principles of the morals we find in the gospel, I do not see of what use Spiritism can be, since we are already being saved by the gospel, according to the Christian faith, to Catholicism or Orthodoxism, and etc. So basically, Kardec answers saying, "Look, you're mistaken. You know that the church. What you're saying is, based on your point of view, the church is the sole criterion of human knowledge. So all the interpretations of the gospel are covered within the church, which is not correct." And he said that if Christ spoke the truth, Spiritism could not do otherwise. The moral teachings that Jesus has actually taught everyone wouldn't be in line with the attitude. So he confirms that Spiritism is just an auxiliary that has come to confirm what Christ has said, but to further explain some of those truths now or then in the 1860s, when humanity was in a better position to understand them from a more deeper level. So he says that Spiritism could not do otherwise, and it's not throwing stones at what Christ has taught us, but it's a powerful auxiliary that has come to confirm through all the voices beyond the grave the fundamental truths of religion have been refuted by disbelief. So it's actually proving the opposite point. So Allan Kardec then says, did Christ say all there was to say? Could he reveal everything? No, because he himself said, I still may have many things to tell you, but you would not understand them, which is why I speak to you in parables. So that's how Jesus communicated with us back, when he was around, and we all know that through the study of the gospel. So Kardec completes the thought by saying, Spiritism has come at this time, now that people are mature enough to understand it, to complete and explain what Christ touched upon only lightly or spoke about only in allegorical form. So as we learn by studying Spiritism, the gospel, or the third revelation, the gospel according to Spiritism, the Spiritist teachings are actually further detailing some of the things that has been taught to us in an allegorical way when Christ was with us. And that's what we find in the New Testament. So Allan Kardec corrects the priest, saying, you stated that Spiritism teaches nothing new, and that is an error. It teaches us a great deal to those who do not stop at the surface. Moreover, had it done nothing more than to put the maxim, without charity, there's no salvation, which unites people, in the place of without the church, there's no salvation, which divides them, that alone would have marked a new era for humankind. So we know that the misinterpretation of this message, that it's love that's the most important thing, not what we believe, would have saved us as humanity from committing a lot of crimes in the name of the church or in the name of the gospel, which is totally not what Christ has, put into place for us. Definitely not. It's not. It wasn't his intention. That's for sure. So when the Spiritist said, without charity, there's no salvation, it would help us see that, like we were saying before, what will put us in a nice position in the spiritual realm when we finish our reincarnatory plans in this life is actually how we lived our lives, how we related to each other, how much love we have given to ourselves and to people around us that will make a difference. So that should be the main thing to be understood from the maxims that we have been taught. So Allan Kardec continues saying that Spiritism enlarges and elevates ideas, and it combats abuses produced by selfishness, cupidity, and ambition, which we know a lot of that has happened in the name of religion. We were probably there doing it some 100 years ago. So it's just a thought that I guess helps us understand why it's not a religious faith in itself that's important. So he says, who would dare defend them, those ideas, and declare themselves be their champion, although it is not indispensable to salvation? Spiritism facilitates it and sets us firmly on the path of the good. Moreover, what sensible person would dare assert that a lack of orthodoxy is more reprehensible in God's eyes than atheism and materialism, which Kardec explains in this question, that is the biggest enemy of our evolution, is materialism and atheism. So I pose the following questions outright, Kardec says, to those who fight Spiritism from the point of view of its religious consequences. So then Kardec now has a series of questions that he's asking to people who would doubt Spiritism because of the religious point of view. So he says, 1, who will be worse off in the future? Those who believe in nothing, or those who believe in general truths, do not accept certain parts of church dogma? It's just a question he asked. Will Protestants and schematics be mixed in together in the same punishment as atheists and materialists? Because you know how we were discussing the previous class, the eternal damnation, eternal punishment that the Catholic faith was imposing on people. Are those who are not orthodox in the strict sense of the word, but who do all good they can, who are kind and indulgent toward their neighbors and honest in their social relationships, be less assured of their salvation than those who believe in everything, but who are hard, selfish, and uncharitable? So he was basically asking, is it more important what you believe or what you do? Right? So is dogma as important as not believing anything? Or what's worse? So posing those questions to the priest. And question number 4, which is worse in God's eyes? The practice of Christian virtues without the practice of the duties of orthodoxy, or the practice of the latter without the duties of morality? So of course, whoever has learned about Christ's teachings, he was talking more about the practice of love, right, than anything else. So Christ never said without church, there's no salvation. There was on the church when he was around. So of course, there was things that we know got, somewhat derailed from the original truths that we were trying to receive or convey. So Kardec wraps up saying, so Reverend, I have responded to the questions and objections that you have addressed to me, but as I told you at the beginning, without any preconceived intention of leading you to our way of thinking or of changing your convictions, I have restricted myself to enabling you to consider Spiritism from its true point of view. And then he makes some recommendations to people who would like to study Spiritism more. He says, we said that the best way to become enlightened about Spiritism is to study the theory first. Because the priest was asking a lot about the phenomena. So he was saying the phenomena would then come naturally and you understand them regardless of the order in which they are brought up by circumstances. And then Kardec further explains the way that someone who wants to get to know more about Spiritism should take the steps towards studying it. So he says, our publications are created with the goal of facilitating this study. Consequently, this is the route that we recommend. You basically start reading this book, What is Spiritism, which is essentially the book that has got the main fundamental ideas about Spiritism. Then he says, after this initial book, you can read the Spirit's book, where the principles are fully developed. Then the Medium's book, which is the experimental part of Spiritism, which will demonstrate how they got to all the answers through the scientific method that Kardec has created using the different mediums and the groups that were isolated from each other, etc. And then he says, then come the assorted works in which the applications and consequences are developed, such as the Gospel according to Spiritism, Heaven and Hell according to Spiritism, and then the Genesis. And then he says that the Review Spirited, the Spiritist magazine, we call it these days. So there's a lot of publications from back in Kardec's time as well, that a lot of Spiritists don't study that, but we should. So he says they have a lot of applications course due to the numerous examples and developments it contains on the theoretical and experimental aspects. So because it was a magazine, some of the things that were happening back at that time when they were publishing this magazine were dealt with different authors that were all part of the Kardec's Spiritist Society back then. So the Spiritist Society that was taking place in France, that was the first one created with Allan Kardec and some of the other Spiritist founding members, I guess we call them. That's it. So with that, we basically finished the third dialogue with the priest, which was very interesting to go through, because I guess a lot of the fundamentals from other Christian faiths can be somewhat put into a parallel. So again, Kardec was really wise in the way that he was not trying to convince or convert anyone, but he was actually just justifying all the thinking behind the rationality of, you know, the Spiritist teachings. So we are very grateful that you could join us. Thank you so much for participating. If you're watching this video after our session, not a problem. If you're watching this video during our session on the 22nd of March of 2022, thank you for joining us, and we will have a meditation now, a healing meditation. So I hope you can stay on and join us. In our next session for this study, we'll continue on the 5th of April, because we have on the following Tuesday, the last Tuesday of the month, we have our therapeutic meetings now. So you can join us as Sutherland Multipurpose Center if you're available for that. We're doing it face-to-face. We have a live transmission as well. So if you're not able to come, not a problem. We'll be able to live transmit it through Facebook. But if you want to join our next session for this study, we will continue on the 5th of April, 2 weeks from now, and we'll start the next chapter, which is the elementary notions of Spiritism. We start with the preliminary remarks, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much. Peace be with you, and talk soon.